This is Beat the Closing Line with Nicole, Mo, and Eli.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Beat the Closing Line. I am your host, Nicole Russo, here alongside resident NFL analyst for TheLines.com, Eli Hershkovich and Mo Nuwwarah. You might already know, but each Tuesday we are going to be taking a look at opening NFL lines and discussing how we think those lines are going to change as we inch closer to game time. Now, if you want to bet any of the games that we talk about in today's show, make sure to take a look at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen because those are going to be the best sportsbook offers we have from all of our partners. And make sure you give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell so you know every time we post a new video on this YouTube channel. And we are still doing our Amazon gift card giveaway. So subscribe to the Beat the Closing Line podcast on Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review in order to have a chance to win that Amazon gift card. Now, before we get into this week's wagers and how we are taking a look at these opening lines, let's talk about how you guys did last week. Eli, how did NFL Week 1 treat you?
It was a good week, besides one pick, which I'll get to in a second. So all of my 4 against the spread bets, all of my 4 NFL Week 1 wagers hit. Thankfully, the Commanders and Carson Wentz made some big plays down the stretch in that game. Dotson with a heck of a catch on 3rd down, and probably didn't deserve that cover. But if Steven Andres ends up losing bets and I end up winning bets, Steven Andres, obviously our coworker at the Lines, then I'm a happy camper. So Washington hit. Houston hit pretty easily, even though that game could have been decided in overtime. Everybody, pretty much, I think the Texans closed at 7. So even if you had a 7 going into overtime, you were okay there. Minnesota dominated the Packers throughout both halves, so cashed that one. Giants needed a little bit of luck on the back end. Daniel Jones getting one last chance at converting, and then luckily didn't end up going to overtime there because Brian Daboll went for the 2-point conversion. Chargers I had as a contest pick in the Lions contest, so that was nice, 5-0 with contest picks against the spread. My one loser, Nicole, was the Bengals survivor pick in the circuit contest against the Steelers. So a bad snap and bad snaps throughout, and then, of course, the missed extra point to end the game and the missed field goal in overtime, setting up Pittsburgh to win that one straight up, and the Bengals survivor pick losing for me. So won a good amount of money, but your Steelers knocked me out of the circuit contest for survivor.
I mean, that was just horrible luck. The Bengals obviously should have won that game. We had no business winning that game. I'll take it as a Steelers fan, but dear God, I mean, I don't even know what I really watched last weekend. Yeah, and it might be, God, if TJ Watt's out, might be our only win of the season. So we really have to take it if he's out a year with a torn pec. Hopefully it's only 4 weeks. But Mo, how did things go on your end?
A solid winning week for my wagers, but went net negative money wise because of the Bengals, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Two of our Gridiron Gamble survivor entries, mine and the Line's overlord Brett Colson. We both had Bengals, so that was
You guys had no faith in Mitch Trubisky. Is that what you're telling me?
Rightfully
Gross.
so, from what it looked like. But
Rightfully
Joe Burrow played
so.
the worst game of his life. So what are you gonna do?
I don't know if he threw the ball over 10 yards before we got into the fourth quarter. Maybe the last drive of overtime, I think, was the first time he actually threw the ball more than a handful of yards. I'm not very excited about it. I think Steelers fans are just counting down the days until they put Pickett in. But yeah, not excited.
What was that? Nicole, what was that throw? I think he was trending towards the sideline, and he threw it off his back. That's typical Mitch Trubisky, right? He threw it off his back foot to Freiermuth. Steelers convert it into Cincy territory, and then they win the game. You knew it was inevitable. Just the way that game flowed. Minkah Fitzpatrick had a heck of a game, and then the blocked extra point after Jamar Chase got the second catch down. Obviously, the first one would have been a hell of a grab, but couldn't get both feet in. So I'm still bitter, and I'll be bitter at you for the rest of the season.
That's fine. We'll take it. Again, I'm probably going to be bitter with my team for the rest of the season, so we're all just going to be bitter when it comes to the Steelers. But I think it's time to put that behind us and take a look at NFL Week 2 and how we're going to bet that. So without further ado, we are going to take it in to the Chargers at the Chiefs. Now, the Chargers are traveling to Arrowhead. They're going to be taking on the Chiefs, who are coming off of a pretty impressive win against the Arizona Cardinals. An early season upset here wouldn't actually be unheard of because in 2021, the Chargers beat the Chiefs 30-24 at Arrowhead. But when the two teams met again in December, the Chiefs had an answer. So Eli, give us your thoughts here. Why are you taking the Chargers at plus 3.5?
Yeah, good pickup point. Good transition there because you go from last season and you look at where these two teams faced, and obviously 1-1, both teams picking up a win, but where these spreads closed. So in week 3, the Chargers closed as a 6.5-point dog at Kansas City. They win that game outright. In week 15, the Chargers closed, so Kansas City closed -3, -3.5, depending on the book, and the Chiefs ended up winning that game in overtime. So, the Chargers probably should have covered that second game. Maybe don't win outright, but at least cover the spread. Either way, both teams pick up a win outright and against the spread. So you look at the market rating this year and where this spread is right now. The highest spread, if you like the Chargers like myself, Chargers are 4-point dogs on DraftKings as we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. And then I think pretty much the rest of the way at the legal U.S. sportsbooks, which you can find over at TheLines.com to get to the best available number, is Kansas City -3.5. So you're getting the Chargers above the hook. A couple key injuries to look at on both sides of the ball, or more than a couple. The Chargers have Keenan Allen, their wide receiver. If there was a practice on yesterday, as we record this again on Tuesday, he supposedly went to practice with a hamstring injury. J.C. Jackson, with one of their better cornerbacks, who they got from the Patriots in the offseason, signed him in free agency with the ankle injury. I'll get to that a little bit more in a second as we dissect Kansas City offensively against the Chargers. But that's the bigger injury to me when we look at matchups specifically. As J.C. Jackson, if he was healthy and plays in this game, would match up against Juju Smith-Schuster. And then on the other side of the ball, Patrick Mahomes has the wrist injury. He's supposed to be a full go in practice today, but and he did suffer that injury on the first possession of the game at the Cardinals, dominated, I want to say, 5 touchdown passes. You never know, though, on a short week how that could carry over into this matchup. So just want to clarify that. Harrison Butker got banged up in that game too, and he was able to kick field goals. I don't think he had one kickoff that he missed, but he was able to kick field goals the rest of the way for the Chiefs. But again, short week. We'll see how that impacts Kansas City special teams. And then on the offensive line for the Chiefs, another notable injury, or two of them, Orlando Brown Jr. with the knee and Trey Smith with the ankle. So looking at Kansas City offensively, again, that J.C. Jackson injury is vital because you need him to match up against Juju Smith-Schuster. The Chargers are a little bit shorthanded at cornerback without him, just because Bryce Callahan is going to stick at nickel. So besides Asante Samuel Jr., you're a little bit lacking at the other cornerback spot, especially against a guy that has proved to be explosive and was explosive last week in Smith-Schuster. And then for the Chiefs rushing attack with Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think Kansas City is going to have an advantage on the ground. We've seen this Chargers run defense get pummeled over going back to last season, even though they have the personnel up front. And then last week, the Raiders had a negative game script, so they had to throw the ball in the second half. So it's hard to really say if the Raiders would have been able to dominate on the ground like opponents did last season against the Chargers. But on the flip side of the ball, Kansas City pass defense, to me, is the exposable matchup. Now, Mo and I have talked about Ward leaving in the offseason. I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing for Kansas City. I still think they have cornerback depth there, and especially with the way Spagnuolo runs this defense. But Matthew is the bigger loss, again, being that vital safety, and you downgrade at that position. Even if Keenan Allen doesn't play, I still like this Chargers receiving core. Mike Williams didn't do much last week. And then you have Palmer and the rookie in the slot. So I still think Herbert can efficiently attack this Chiefs secondary. I like Kansas City's front seven overall, and Chargers offensive line is stout there too. So it's a good matchup with the front seven. So the fact that we're getting over the hook, or the fact that we're getting the hook over a field goal, and as we get some barks, dogs are barking for the Chargers at +3.5.
All right, so yes, we do get some interruptions from Miss Joplin the dog, and it seems like she is always interrupting Eli, so she must agree with Mo's picks here. Mo, this is your team that Eli is talking about. You are a Chiefs fan, so what do you think? Do you agree with him on this one? Do you think that the Chargers can keep it close or potentially win, or do you not really worry about Mahomes and his wrist injury and think that they go 2-0?
I think they should go 2-0, but I do lean towards the Chargers here. I just don't know if I can bet it because of Keenan Allen, though. It sounds like he's not going to play. It might keep me off this one. It's just such a downgrade when you get to the next few pass catchers. Something DeAndre Carter, Gerald Everett has atrocious hands. I mean, he's going to make some big plays every now and then because he does have the athleticism, but he's going to have some huge drops. And I think in some spots they could maybe lean more on Austin Eckler. He had a pretty poor game in week 1, but in past years I'd be very concerned about the Chiefs being able to corral him. But I think with Daniel Sorensen gone and Anthony Hitchens gone, two absolutely atrocious coverage guys that were getting huge clock for the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs are as exposed to running back pass catchers as they used to be. I'm just a little bit worried about the Chargers' ability to consistently pass the ball without Keenan Allen, I guess. I know Mike Williams has been very good for them, but Keenan is by quite a bit the best receiver they have, I think. And yeah, I mean, you're going to need to keep up with the Chiefs, I think. So they looked obviously tremendous on offense in week 1. The hook, yeah,
Against
the
the
hook does
Cardinals.
seem a tad high to me. I do kind of think the line should be 3, but if I knew Keenan was going to play, I'd be pretty excited to get 3.5. But I don't know. I guess I am concerned about the Chiefs' ability to maybe make a kick if they need one. We'll see what happens there. I'm hearing that they're bringing in some kickers. So if that's the case, the Chiefs have had a large edge on special teams, especially over a team like the Chargers. The Chiefs always have an edge usually on special teams, but if they don't have that edge, I'd be a little more worried.
I mean, when we're talking about kickers, we could pretty much say that we're worried for half the teams in the NFL to make a kick in NFL Week 2 after NFL Week 1. So it's not
That's
just
very
a Chiefs
true.
issue. So, but hey, we'll see. But I think that's a good stopping point there. And then we'll take it into our second game of today's video, and that is going to be the Saints versus the Bucks. Now, Tom Brady and the Bucks didn't really struggle too much against the Dallas Cowboys last weekend, winning on the road 19-3. The Bucks defense looks solid here, really not letting the Cowboys do too much on offense. But the Saints, on the other side, didn't necessarily have the easiest win against the Falcons. But if you take a look at the Saints and the Bucks in head-to-head matchups, the Saints are kind of dominating there in recent years. The Bucks lost twice to them in 2021, and then they split the season in 2020. Mo, do you think this trend continues? What line are you taking here in this game?
Yeah, actually, the Saints swept them both seasons, but lost in the playoffs. So they're 4-1 against Brady since he got there. I think there's something to that, and I do like the Saints quite a bit. This is the line that stuck out the most to me by quite a bit. I didn't think the Bucks offense looked very good in week 1. I thought they got a lot of mileage out of just running straight against a bad run defense. Dallas had an atrocious run defense last year. It didn't look improved. Leonard Fournette had 127 on 21 carries. That's not going to work against the Saints. I know they struggled a little bit week 1, but I'm just willing to put off week 1. It's usually weird. Sometimes there's weird results. The Saints still have a great defense on paper, and they were the number 1 run defense last year by DVOA and EPA per play. So I think they're going to make Brady pass, and well, I just don't think the Bucks passing game is as strong as it's been the last couple of years. Brady another year older. The offensive line looked not near as good as it has the last couple of years. And then obviously, I don't think Godwin's going to play. So if Lattimore locks up Evans like he usually does, I don't know where they're going to go with the ball. So yeah, I like the week 1 results. I think are going to keep people thinking that the Bucs are a contender, top contender, and the Saints are maybe they had a kind of a down game. So they were also, dominating in yards per play in that game. So I don't think it's as bad as it maybe looks when they needed a last-second field goal to beat the Falcons. I also like that kind of Jameis seemed like he was building some chemistry with Mike Thomas as the game went along. He was much more effective
Down the
in the
stretch
second half.
especially.
So I'm hoping they can attack this Bucs defense a little bit. I know it's a very good defense, so that's obviously the concern. But man, just getting these points at home against a team they've dominated, I think there's something to the way they play defense against Brady.
Eli, are you in agreement there? Do you have any thoughts that you'd like to add in on what Mo just said?
Yeah, I think the last game we talked about, Chiefs Chargers, in this game are actually kind of similar because Chargers, if you look at the box score overall, I mean, there's a lot to that because the Chargers played conservative ball in the second half, which is odd to say about Brandon Staley. And then on the flip side, the Saints needed to squeak past the Falcons. So you look at those two scores initially and you say, okay, the Chiefs blow out the Arizona Cardinals. And then on the flip side, the Bucs dominate the Cowboys, even though that Cowboys offense was banged up, and then Prescott gets hurt in the midst of the game. So how much can you really, are those teams being inflated as a result of the results in week 1? And then to Mo's point about the Bucs passing attack, the key there is Tom Brady's release time. He had the 3rd quickest release time among quarterbacks in week 1. So yes, the Bucs offensive line is banged up to your point, and it's a good one against this Saints defensive front. But if Brady is able to negate that with his ability to get the ball out of his hands quick, and the Bucs actually do rely on his arm and his quick passing ability versus Leonard Fournette on the ground, because I agree with you there too. If the Bucs run it a lot, I don't see a ton of success there, at least compared to the Cowboys game in week 1. So key factors, maybe if we get the hook with the Saints and Bucs keep getting bet up, I'll take a look at New Orleans, but for right now, stay away.
I think it is a good lesson, though, that sometimes box score isn't always indicative of how the game went. I think that's, 2 instances where, like you said, especially in the Dallas Cowboys game, where it might seem like a blowout, but you don't, I'm not saying it wasn't, but you're not seeing all the injuries. And obviously Dak has been in the news for,
Right.
for I believe it's the thumb injury. So things to keep a look at, and when you're placing your bets, maybe not always just taking a look at the box score to influence your bets for the upcoming week. All right, it's time to get into some fun stuff, which is our WTF segment of the show, and that is where we take something that we've seen, either a press conference or something on Twitter, or in this case, a game that we just have to hash out, have to talk about. And I'm going to be honest, guys, after Sunday's slate of games and the missed field goals and all of the ties, I thought, wow, we're going to really have a hard time narrowing down what game, what segment that we want to talk about for today's show. And then Monday Night Football and the Broncos rolled in and said, hold my beer, we're going to take that spot.
What the
Try to be a hero here in week 1 on the road in Seattle. From 64, McManus missed it.
I mean, I don't know what I watched with Nathaniel Hackett and the clock management and the decisions that they made in the 4th quarter last night. I'm sure you guys have opinions, so I'm just going to let us jump right into it. Eli, you watched it on replay, so you already knew what happened when you were watching it this morning on replay. So what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I had some family stuff going on last night, so couldn't watch it live. But I summarized this in a tweet after watching it, and it was kind of fun because you knew what was coming, and you got to kind of take it in, and again, kind of realizing what was going to happen while you guys watching it live didn't. So the Broncos outgained Seattle in yards per play, 6.8 to 5.2 overall. They also outgained them pretty handily through the air when you look at yards per pass attempt, yards per pass attempt. And then the Broncos went 0 for 4 in the red zone, 2 fumbles at the goal line, didn't try to sneak it with Russell Wilson once. And then obviously the disastrous final 2 minutes for the Broncos where they ran 45 seconds off the clock, 45 plus seconds off the clock, didn't attempt to go for it on fourth down and instead went for the McManus 64-yard field goal, which would have been the second longest kick in history. I know McManus tried to defend himself, and maybe he was trying to defend his first year and first game for Nathaniel Hackett as a head coach, but I got to give a nice round of applause to our guy, Nuwwarah, because he had Broncos win total under 8.5. And he made some great points in the article over at TheLines.com. You can check it out if you want to revisit it, that this is a first-year coaching staff all the way around. And you have Russell Wilson in the system for the first time. Russell Wilson looked a little nervy throughout that game. But more importantly, Nathaniel Hackett is an idiot.
Very concise way to put it. Mo, I know we've talked about, yes, congratulations because you did have the Seahawks, but we talked about some of this before we even opened the show and how insane it is that you invest $250 million into a future Hall of Fame quarterback and you don't trust him to sneak it once at the 1 yard line, or you don't put the ball in your star quarterback's hand on, I believe it was 4th and 5 with the game on the line. So I know you've got some thoughts, but you're probably thrilled that Nathaniel Hackett lost his mind at the end of the game there.
Yeah, definitely. What's incredible about it is I think I saw a quote where he was like, I didn't like how we were moving the ball that last possession. They got every high leverage play. Every time it was third down, they converted. I was just like,
Yep.
It was just free dump offs. Every dump off was going for 8 yards to Javonte Williams. I have no idea what he was looking at where he thought his team was struggling to move the ball at all because they were marching up and down the field the entire game, basically. Yeah, I couldn't believe that they pulled off the combo of not only killing the clock, well, not only not going for the fourth, but also killing the clock while they did it. Where if they just kicked right away,
Right.
they would have had potentially, at least a chance for like use your timeouts and maybe the other team like drops the snap or you block a punt. I mean, it's not a good chance, but it's better than zero. So why would you kill the clock? Because if you at least kick right away and make it, yeah, the other team has time, but they have Geno Smith in 40 seconds or whatever. I mean, you take your chances.
MVP candidate, Geno Smith, by the way, to you, Mo.
He's my MVP right now. He's winning me the most money, so.
I was going to say, your bankroll, he's your bankroll's MVP. Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened there. I think, to me, what made it worse is that, like you kind of touched on, Mo, we get the post-game interviews and the press conference, and he just doubles down on all of his decisions. I mean, everyone in America, potentially in the world, is thinking this man's the biggest idiot in football, in the NFL, and he just doesn't even question any of the decisions he made. I do have to give it to Russ. I think he handled it like a champ. He was pretty good in those post-game interviews, but I mean, dear God, every worst decision was made.
Hold on one second, Nicole. Yes, Russell Wilson handled it like a pro after the game, but what are we doing with the suit walking into the stadium? Like, I don't know if you guys saw it, but it's a silver suit. Obviously, he's trying to, make a statement. It's his first game back in Seattle, first game of the 2022 season after playing with his entire tenure with the Seahawks. But what is that? Like, can we just wear a nice black normal suit? I just don't need this sort of Russell Wilson trying to take a step up there in class with his, or supposedly in class with his outfit pregame. I'm just not a fan.
It was giving very much prom like 2015 vibes, so I cannot say that it was my favorite Russell Wilson look of all time, but I mean, he was clearly feeling himself with the way that he was walking into that stadium and got a lot of boos as well. That Seattle crowd was ruthless. All right, I think it's time to jump back in to sports betting talk. And Mo, we're going to kick it off with you. and the Ravens. So we are going to go over to the Ravens-Dolphins matchup. It seemed like both quarterbacks were looking to silence the haters a little bit in their week 1 starts. Lamar recorded 3 passing touchdowns, and Tua looked like he was able to kind of spread the ball around against the Patriots. The Dolphins beat the Ravens last year in Florida, but we've talked about environment actually earlier on this show, and I think it is going to play a factor here in this game. It is hard to beat the Ravens at home, in my personal opinion. Right now, the Ravens are 3.5-point favorites. Mo, why are you taking this bet?
I think the line is a little short here of where it should be. It's not an exciting number to lay, obviously. 3.5 here. I will say, first of all, my second favorite play is actually Eli's next one. So this one I haven't actually fired it yet, but I'm definitely going to be monitoring it. I'm hoping it hits 3. And yeah, I think part of it you mentioned already. I think maybe some revenge factor. That Dolphins loss kind of started their downfall a little bit last year in prime time. And I'm wondering just how bad New England is, honestly, because it can be tempting to just like go with your priors here. Like, okay, I liked the Ravens coming in. I didn't like Miami. So what if New England is just bad? It's like kind of an easy out, but there was a lot of kind of camp chatter that things were looking pretty poor in the Patriots mini camps and stuff. So if that was real, maybe they are just pretty bad. And in that case, they're probably getting too much credit for a pretty strong win, what looks like a pretty strong win on paper where they easily covered. I also like that Tua's arm is pretty terrible. So you can get away with, some short passes, intermediate passes, but I think against the Ravens specifically, they've always kind of been most vulnerable when you're attacking them deeper down the field. Marcus Peters is a cornerback who is kind of boom bust and does allow a lot of big plays, but I don't know if Tua can really exploit that if he's not able to get the ball down the field to these speedsters. The betting volume's been coming in on Miami a little bit, it looks like, so I'm hoping that the line moves in the Ravens' favor. So I do think they're at least a couple points better than Miami, though. I know Steven's going to disagree, and hopefully we are right and Steven's wrong. He has,
as always.
He has more,
not just today, but as always.
He has more money than us
In
anyway,
life.
so we need it more than him.
True.
Before we get into a game that you guys both agree on, which is a miracle in and of itself, Eli, do you have anything you'd like to add on Mo's Ravens take?
Yeah, I think, well, first off, I think Mo learned his lesson, and I'm not one to thump my chest. I'm not trying to do that, trust me, because you could have a good week and a really crappy week. So just a piece of advice, if you dominated week 1 or had a good betting week, please don't double down in week 2 and bet even more. Go from let's say if your bankroll per game is $100 and don't go to like $1,000 a game just because you had a really good week 1. That's just not great from a betting perspective overall. But Mo, yeah, I mean, you were disagreeing with me a lot last week, and then now all of a sudden we're on the same page. So I think it's a sign of good things to come. But I am in agreement with Mo overall on this game. You guys know I'm high on the Ravens with my Super Bowl future. But you look at, one thing that I continue to see getting tweeted out is Lamar Jackson is bad against the blitz, and they just show the numbers from last year. First of all, the Ravens were very banged up on both sides of the ball last year. So I don't know how much you could take his numbers into account from last season, especially when you look at 2020 and 2019, his MVP year, where he dominated on third downs, especially within the metric expected points added. Also, I would like to make the quick point now that I'm thinking about it, that Nicole has jinxed the Ravens and they're going to be completely banged up the entire season because Kyle Fuller just tore his ACL last week. So we did the WTF segment and Nicole had to say, is this going to carry over to 2022? Guess what, Nicole? It has. So again, I'm mad at you for a multitude of reasons, especially this Ravens injury report.
We knew for a fact that the Ravens injuries were not ending with their mascot. Okay, it was a very optimistic view if you thought that was going to be the last injury of the season. This team has been plagued with injuries for, I don't know what they did to harm or to piss someone off in a past life, but this Ravens team is plagued with injuries. But I think it's time for our kumbaya moment. We're going to end the show with something that everyone's in agreement on, and that is the Jaguars and the Colts game. So I think that's a nice way to finish it off. The Colts are coming off of an unimpressive game last week where they tied the Houston Texans. They couldn't score on 2 overtime possessions, which included a missed field goal. Again, like we've said, that was the norm last week. But now they're on the road in Jacksonville. The Jaguars are currently sitting at plus 4.5, and I believe, like I said, both of you like this number. So Mo, go ahead and kick us off, and then we'll tie it up with Eli.
Well, I should definitely say that everything Eli put together for this game is stuff I'm in complete agreement with. It was just a case where the final score doesn't tell the tale in this Washington game. I had Washington. I don't know that it was like a bad bet, but maybe the market was just pretty much on there. It was just a coin flip game basically. And the Jags moved the ball quite a bit in that game. Numerous times where they probably should have scored some points that they didn't. Etienne had an absolutely atrocious touchdown drop. And
wide open, walk-in,
completely uncovered, easy. And then this is the guy that they wanted to put in the slot last year. Nice talent scouting, guys.
Urban. Let's be clear here. That Urban Meyer wanted to put in the slot.
Right, that wasn't going to work clearly. But yeah, the Jaguars probably deserved a better result, and Indianapolis just didn't look good. Like I know they dominated Houston in the box score, but they weren't doing anything for like an entire half of football. I mean, they played much better on offense in the second half, but I don't know, man. What if Matt Ryan just doesn't have it anymore? Like that's in play. And these weapons, man. Dude, Alec Pierce had it. Speaking of embarrassing drops, Alec Pierce, not a good first impression. I think he was just like glued to the bench after that. He dropped a pretty easy touchdown from Matt Ryan as well. And it wasn't like the easiest play in the world, but it's a play where a professional receiver should never miss it. And I just don't like when I see Nyheim Hines playing this big of a role. I like Nyheim Hines. He's a good player, but you don't want your backup running back to be the clear third banana in terms of like weaponry and pass catching. It's not good. I mean, it's just not good. And I don't know if Matt Ryan can take advantage of what I see as a pretty vulnerable Jacksonville secondary. So that's basically what I'm thinking. I don't think they should be over a 3-point dog here. So I even like the Jags a little more than Eli, I think.
Yeah.
Eli, it's your time to take us home. I know you have to be feeling good about everything that Mo said. You have to you savor this moment because it might not happen again. So what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so going back to our WTF segment, another coach we could have thrown into the equation, just quickly touching on Colts Texans from week 1, was Lovie Smith. I mean, punting the ball, I think it might have been a 4th and 9, 4th and long situation in overtime, but you're giving the ball back to Indianapolis and you're not going to get the possession again. So what are you doing? You're truly playing for the tie. It made zero sense to me. Just an odd coaching decision. But going back to Colts Texans, like Mo said, Indy dominated the box score, dominated Houston in yards per play. 6 drives, I want to say, at or beyond the Texans' 39-yard line that ended at or beyond the Texans' 39-yard line resulted in 2 field goals. So the Colts offense underperformed from a talent standpoint. I mentioned this last week. Houston secondary is nothing to write home about. Mo just hit it on the nose with Jacksonville. Besides Shaquille Griffin, not much to like there. And Carson Wentz, of all quarterbacks, exposed them, like Mo and I thought when we both bet the Commanders under a field goal. But Indianapolis is secondary. Stephon Gilmore is solid. He had a solid coverage grade going back to last week, and he's obviously proven himself as a 10-year veteran. But you lose your best coverage cornerback in Rock Ya-Sin going back to last season. And beyond that, I mean, look at their secondary. Kenny Moore, and then at safety, Julian Blackmon and a rookie going up against a pretty talented Jags receiving core. Jags consistently got the ball in plus territory, didn't convert like Mo mentioned. So I think even though there isn't a ton of value from the look ahead line perspective, because this line on the look ahead was Colts -4.5, and then now it's gotten bet down. Just to plug our Discord really quick, I bet Jags yesterday on Monday at +4.5 in the morning, and you could sign up for the Line Discord and sign up to see when Mo and I bet NFL games, so you don't miss the best of the number, because people are going to complain, Nicole, when people are looking at this board maybe later in the weekend, it's sitting at Jags over the key number of 3 at 3.5 potentially. But I do think this number is fine down to 3.5. Again, I think the Jags offense, even though Lawrence, besides the last pick, which was a hell of a pick by Washington secondary to wrap up that game, looked pretty good overall. And they were winning, and they were up or at a possession by 8 until Carson Wentz started to break through and run hurry up and get Washington down the field for 2 scores. We mentioned this earlier too, but Jacksonville probably should have covered that game with the exception of the last third down pass to Dotson that resulted in a touchdown, because if the Commanders kick a field goal, then the Jags likely still cover unless they get a turnover on their last possession of the game. So Mo is higher on the Jags overall this season. I'm pretty low on Indy. In the Lines power rankings, I have Indy rated 17th. I think I have Jacksonville at 26 or 27. The fact that you're getting Jacksonville over the key number of 3, and the fact that it's still sitting out there at 4, got it at 4.5 yesterday. I liked the Jags to cover this game.
All right, and that about wraps it up for our picks in this Tuesday segment of Beat the Closing Line. But remember, Eli and I will be back on Thursday talking with a special guest interview, so make sure you hop back on to check that out. And as always, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like, and ring the bell so you know every time we post a new video. And again, make sure to follow the Beat the Closing Line podcast on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to that over there and leave a 5-star review for a chance to win an Amazon gift card. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.